to this spot here. There we go. Okay, so you guys have seen a slide like this before. This is the unemployment rate, and it ends at December. The slide ends at December 2019, so this is before the crisis. And you can see that the black unemployment rate, like all the other races, came down consistently after the Great Recession. Those lines all pretty much move in parallel, um, but still higher than the other races. The purple line at the top is still significantly higher uh, than other folks. And if you look at some of the averages, it's I guess I don't have the average here. Pardon me. The unemployment rate was 5.9 versus 3.2 in December. So still, even with the great economy that we had, you still got a rough 2.9, 2.7% difference in the unemployment rates. In terms of labor force participation in that prime age group for working, so the 25 to 54 group, this one actually goes through April, but doesn't do May, which would show a rebound a little bit. Whites and blacks still significant difference between the two, and if you go back, that's when I think I have the average on it. Yeah, 79 versus 82.7. So still, whites in a better position than blacks. When you look at the labor force, the way it's defined, you're talking about the civilian non-institutional population. So people that are in prison are not part of the population that's used for these numbers, and they're not part of the unemployed or even outside of the labor force. I got to be careful with that one. They're outside of the population, so they would be outside of the labor force as well. When they come back, though, if they get out of the jail and come back into these numbers, if you will, it's still harder to get a job. So you don't see the incarceration directly here, you see it indirectly, is my understanding. And Carl, correct me there if I've messed that one up, but I believe that's the case. The incomes, real median income and home ownership, still Black Americans have not gotten back to where they were in 2000, even though the whites have gone up from there. And even Hispanics have grown, but blacks have stayed behind. There's been some recovery since 2010, but still not back to that year 2000 level. And the home ownership rate as well, it's actually been falling since 2000 for blacks, whereas with whites, it continued to go up until 2010, and then it's since has fallen a bit back. So a couple more ways of looking at this. When you look at educational attainment, it shows the level of education there along the bottom of the chart, the groups, and then the whites in the orange and the blacks in purple and blue. When you look at college, whites have a much higher chance of getting through college right now, getting their college diplomas. A higher percentage of them are 36 to 26 have made it through college, and that includes postgraduate as well. In the ways I did these numbers, the college premium for lifetime is somewhere around a third of $1 million, 335,000 if you come from a low income, and it's almost $1 million if you come from a high income, which surprised me. I didn't realize that college premium was so tremendously different, but it is 71% increase if you are going from a high school to college, and then 130 if you're low income, and then 136% increase if you're a high income family getting your college degree. But this was another one that was kind of interesting, and you wouldn't think about this maybe. If you are a white college educated person, you're still getting help from your parents. If you are a black college educated person, you are giving money to your parents. So the whites are actually, the parents are handing down money to the next generation and helping them accumulate wealth. Whereas in the case of the blacks, they are not. They are actually a hindrance to their children, who in theory are getting better educated than they are, which is a good thing. But kids are still giving them the money. So it's making it a little bit harder for black educated folks to move ahead, which in terms of net worth. So I thought that was kind of an interesting finding from this study from the BLS on this. Again, we always put our sources at the bottom, and you can see there's a BLS study there that's kind of interesting about how that came about. So in terms of net worth, another way of looking at it, a 10 times difference, 100, 170, let's say, versus 17. It's a big difference. And then at every educational level, it also is a big difference. Obviously less when you get to the less than high school, neither group has much money. But as you get into the higher education groups, the difference becomes more pronounced in terms of poverty, the poverty rates double for blacks versus whites, a little more. And then in healthcare, even more uninsured, 5.4 to 9.7. So you can see, also, you'll see indicated at the bottom of some of these charts, there's a really good Washington, this CNN article is pretty good, but let me go back up here to the Washington Post. Lower left corner here, the black-white economic divide is as wide as it was in 1968. They've got 14 charts just in that article. So if you are sharing information, um, through Twitter or through Facebook or any other way, that article is a really good one to link, and you'll get a bunch of these charts all in one place. Any questions or comments on that? I mean, kind of what surprised you or didn't surprise you? Did you realize it was this bad? I guess I'll ask the group. Did you think it was that bad?
No, actually, I did not think, and with the thing that I do work with disadvantaged population, I volunteered for 1 million degrees for first time, college students. Like, I thought I'm like super, super on the issue, and like the last slide, the last numbers were like, oh my gosh, you know what, not that bad. So
Yeah,
no, that was quite surprising again, and I'm not a stranger to the issue, so that's why I'm like, God, it's like, if it was a prize for me, then
right, right. So there's so much that needs to be done in this space to help everybody move up, but also um, our Black African American friends and coworkers. I have my right arm where I work is an African American guy. Actually, he prefers the term black because he says I can't trace my ancestry to Africa, though you would assume, but he prefers that term. So I was talking to him about this stuff the other day, and I said, how he actually brought it up, and he said he wanted to talk about this, and he had a lot of stuff on his mind about these issues and his community, and he shared a lot of anecdotes about what he saw. He lives in the city. He lives a few blocks away from where Barack Obama lives, actually on the south side, and he was explaining how there were tons of people that weren't from his neighborhood that were running around, and some of them were they were breaking into a Walgreens they have right there, and a group of his friends in the neighborhood sort of stood guard over at that place and kind of encouraged the protesters to move on. So it was interesting that some of the communities took this on themselves, but he is a professional and is very successful. And I've worked with him for a decade, and I've taught him everything I know about our profession, internal auditing, and he's gotten really good at it. And it was nice to be able to promote him, um, recently into a higher level. So it's just we all have a responsibility to do some of these things and to really mentor and help our brothers and sisters. The other anecdote I was telling people is, well, I'll tell you another time. But there was a very famous African American man that I met in the airport, and I just, for some reason, his name just popped out of my head. He's a very well-known intellectual. He has hair like Don King, and he was on CNN with Anderson Cooper just the other day, and there was sort of this thing that went viral on Twitter that had their discussion. But I met him, and I knew he was somebody famous, and I looked him up on Wikipedia and walked over and was talking to him, and he was very down to earth. He signed an autograph for my wife and me that and was very gracious, and I'm just kicking myself because this guy is there's so much. He's a Harvard professor in philosophy and other things, and I just couldn't. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Terrible, but he was just a wonderful guy. It was really kind of fun to talk to him for a few minutes, and then I left him alone because I don't want to bug him. But he's on his way to a conference or something.